This is an American Northwest production from an article in American Northwest magazine. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us here at American Northwest Magazine's first podcast. I'm Danny Newsom. The topic is affordable housing in the USA. We are beginning a recurring article on the affordable housing issue on American Northwest Magazine's website under recurring article. This will be a dynamic and fluid article, hopefully incorporating your comments sent to us at americannorthwestmagazine@gmail.com. Now, there are several reasons for the USA not having affordable housing. One of them is simply wealth inequality, which is a subject all on its own. Another is the type of housing that is available as a result of the banks, through lobbying of the various government jurisdictions, to their benefit that will be discussed later. The U.S. and maybe the world are billionaire makers, and that process, I believe, takes a lot of wealth out of the pockets of the 90% in this world. So we have to be creative and make efforts in the areas that can bring that wealth back to us, specifically in the areas of affordable and pleasant housing, and so on. If you are an older person and worked hard, bought a home early in life, and now your home is paid for, you have been successful in this endeavor. For those of us who have not been so diligent, we must get creative. However, before moving on, I shall mention that even if you were diligent and have your own home, in many cases, these homes are unaffordable now because the property taxes you're paying are tantamount to paying rent to the government. Fortunately, in some areas, such as California, they had a proposition that limited the increase in your assessed value of your home to limit your property taxes from growing to an outrageous number. In this case, you may have to sell your home and look for a more affordable option. So the two areas I'd like to discuss tonight about affordable housing is the dilemma of the renter and the prospective homeowner. The major dilemma for the renter, of course, is that rents keep going up and pay does not. Why does rent continually increase? One reason, corporate entities buy up properties, and of course to maximize profits, they must raise rents whenever they can. And of course, many homeowners own a second or third home or apartment complex or duplex, and they rent it out. And of course, they raise the rent when the price goes up. And their expenses didn't necessarily go up. Their mortgage would still be the same. They're just raising it because the market says they can. Another reason rents go up is because of inflation. Inflation is due to the fact that we use fiat currency, and the U.S. government and banks, in some instances, can just print money. Of course, they don't literally print the money. They just edit the T account that says, okay, we didn't have this money before, and now we do. That increases the M1 money supply, and then inflation creeps in. I grew up in the Bay Area of San Francisco and experienced the increase in home prices and rentals firsthand. And one primary factor there was the increase in success of the electronic companies. As Silicon Valley grew, so did the home prices and rents. The same thing has happened in many areas such as Seattle, and currently happening in the San Antonio and Austin area of Texas. Those are the reasons that I can think of right now. But regardless of the reasons, what can the renter do? Can government help this problem? Whether it's on the local, state, or federal level, I believe they can, but won't. There's an argument that says that if rent is controlled, then the overall quality of housing goes down significantly. There's also other arguments against rent control. I believe if rent control is done properly, it would be quite effective. The problem is the people that would be involved with affecting a change and implementing rent control, well, they own rentals themselves. There's certainly no incentive for anyone who owns a home or an apartment and rents it out to want to implement rent control. The only way this could be affected or accomplished would be a grassroots effort of a large portion of the renting population. One idea I have is instead of implementing rent control, we develop and introduce a bill that at some point in the near future, renters would be given a percentage of ownership in the property for the term of the lease. I think that 30% of ownership for a period of 10 years of leasing would be a minimum threshold. Again, this would require a large portion of the renting population to join this grassroots effort. Under recurring sections in American Northwest Magazine, we will continue to monitor and aid in this effort. I certainly don't know everything about this subject, and I may have misspoken about some of these elements of the subject, so please correct me or add to what I have to say. Please look in the description section and contact me through American Northwest Magazine's email address, americannorthwestmagazine@gmail.com. Now, earlier we said we would speak about the dilemma of the prospective homeowner. Due to several factors, in many cases it is impossible for the average worker to get an affordable mortgage on a safe and comfortable home within the area in which they work. Some of the reasons for this are the same as discussed for the dilemma of the renters. The one area I'd like to focus on is the type of housing that is available versus the type of housing that we need for first-time buyers, so that first-time buyers can buy instead of rent at the age of 20. In more than 99% of the areas in the United States, you cannot buy a piece of land and legally build a 400 square foot small home. This would be very desirable because the cost would be significantly less than the average minimum of 1,200 square feet that is required by most jurisdictions. There are a small amount of examples of where you can do this, but with very big restrictions. Restrictions such as the government calls it a recreation area and therefore limits the amount of time that you can stay in your home that you own to only 120 days per year. I assume that a major reason for this is that the banks would not be issuing a mortgage for somebody who can build a 400 square foot home on their own land in many of the cases, because they can just pay cash for the land and slowly build their 400 square foot home. I assume that the banks lobby the various government entities to require a minimum of 1,200 square feet so that they can issue more mortgages and therefore be much more profitable. If someone in this business can contact me to confirm this, I'd greatly appreciate it. Contact me also if you know contrary to what I believe. There is also usually a time limit that limits you how long it will take for you to build the house or that you're allowed to build. That also is in the interest of the bank, because if you could take, a year or 2 or 3 to build your little home, you wouldn't need a mortgage. You could buy lumber and supplies as you needed them while you were building and have a trailer on the property until then. So to reiterate, I think that it would be just if a young person just finishing high school and beginning college or beginning their first full-time job, they should be able to buy a small trailer, buy a small piece of land, maybe get a loan for that small amount and pay it off quickly, then be able to buy some land, put that trailer on it, and slowly build a 400 square foot home. And then once they have more cash, they can build onto that home, eventually having a full-size home if they wanted to. I would like to be part of an effort to make this happen. The banks will fight it. The banks will lobby the government entities in their favor. It will be difficult, but again, a grassroots effort with millions of Americans fighting against the banks and therefore the government to allow us to buy a piece of land, build a 400 square foot home on it, and go from there. And I failed to mention that initially you would put a small trailer on the property while you build, without ridiculous time limits to complete your home, which would allow you to buy building materials as you have the money and construct your small home on your time. I failed to mention that if your home is only 400 square feet, or if you're living in a trailer while you build your home of 400 square feet, the piece of land you initially need to acquire would be significantly smaller and therefore less expensive. The points I would like to reiterate about this podcast tonight are that we need to implement some kind of rent control or ownership sharing program for those who are forced to rent. And to enable people to buy instead of rent, we need government at all levels to allow the formation or transformation of neighborhoods consisting of small pieces of land that would accommodate a recreational trailer or park model and the ability to build a home as small as 400 square feet. We should begin a grassroots effort here to accomplish these changes. And if there are grassroots efforts out there already, we should seek to join them. Please write in to American Northwest Magazine at gmail.com and include a video clip of yourself in a release that I can use it on the podcast or in a video, and indicate whether you want me to use just the audio or the audio and the video. That's all we have time for tonight. Thank you for listening.